Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Discovery Pod with Eve. We've got a very special guest with us today, David A.R. He's an actor, producer, director. We'll delve into his background in a few minutes. I'm joined today by my co-host, Tony Blass. Tony is an actor, producer. He does it all. Tony, welcome to the Discovery Pod with Eve. What are you working on that you would like us to know about?
Well, I did a horror movie this first time this summer, and it's premiering at the end of the month at a creature feature festival or something in Ohio.
Wonderful.
It's called Creatureville.
Wow.
And I got my head chopped, which was amazing.
What?
Yeah, I mean, somebody took a big shovel right at me. And then they had a mannequin with my clothes on it, and its head tilted back, and blood shot out.
That's incredible. Tony, something else that I really want folks to know about is Tony has lost over 85 pounds. And I think it's fantastic because this podcast is all about inspiring others to go out and chase their dreams. So, Tony, tell us, how did you lose 85 pounds? You look like a totally different person in a very good way.
Thank you. Well, you inspired me because we're in a movie together that's going to be shooting next year, and there's something of a love interest, I think, brewing from between our characters, and I just didn't think it was credible that somebody like you would be having any interest in somebody like me 85 pounds ago.
Well, so. Tony, don't give the credit to me. I think you should take all the credit because it's your hard work. You changed your lifestyle. I know I discuss my lifestyle. I work out consistently. I eat very clean. But I'm celebrating you for all of your success and your weight journey. So many people are going to be inspired. I am so excited today. We've got an incredible guest that I was very fortunate to have worked on one of his upcoming projects. David A.R. We are honored to welcome a truly remarkable guest. David, as we celebrate a decade of groundbreaking God's Not Dead franchise, David stands at the forefront of an impactful movement in the faith-based cinema. So we're going to be delving into David's new project, God's Not Dead, In God We Trust. So, David, it is so good to have you with us today. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
So, David, in God's Not Dead, In God We Trust, you tackle the theme of a politically charged world. You know, given the heightened political polarization today, how did you approach making this film?
Well, it's certainly, 10 years. So the first one came out 10 years ago, which is never in my, I think, wildest dreams. That sounds a little weird, yeah. But in my, never would I have imagined that we would be doing the fifth installment.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, which seems, it's, but... So going into it, we never ever expect that, okay, we're going to be doing another one. What's the next one going to be about? So until we just, we pray a lot about it. We try to figure out, okay, is there a purpose for doing another one? Mm-hmm. And if so, what is that supposed to be about? And we don't really know. Some of our writers that we've worked with in the past always talk about going up on a mountain and praying for God's guidance.
Wow!
Right, and they're incredible writers. They did a ton of Hollywood huge movies, yeah. And then they became guys of faith, and they did that. I wouldn't say so much that we go up on a mountain. We just try to figure it out in the midst of asking the Lord what does He want us to do. So. Anyway, this one came about that it came right after the fourth one, We the People, and it was an election movie, and yes. Here we are in the middle of an election as this came out. So
perfect.
Yeah, so wow. The timing just seemed to be, it just seemed to every aspect of it lined up.
Incredible.
So some of the casting choices might seem a bit controversial,
sure.
And
I think the whole movie franchise is controversial, as a lot of people say.
Well, but I was thinking, Scott Baio, Dean Cain, and Mike Huckabee, people who've been quite famous in their outspoken political views. How do you deal with that in terms of promotion and in? Do you have any concerns about that being an issue in the distribution and acceptance?
Not really. I mean, like, as far as the cast goes, you just try. I think in any movie, you try to get people who line up in a way that they're everybody's on the, there's movie making is so hard in and of itself. Like, no matter what it is, from the smallest movie to the $300 million, Deadpool movie, there's a lot of tension and a lot of problems on movies. It's just hard. It's like corralling cats to try to move in the right direction to actually complete something. And if you can have people who are easy to work with and you like, it just makes life so much easier on set and off and in the promotion. And both Baio and Dean Cain and all those guys were huge in the promotion of this when it came out theatrically. I can't say enough about them. They're all just great guys. They
and
really
I
are.
watched it. I've seen it twice, and I can actually say Mike Huckabee was fantastic. It was incredible to see, because he was a governor, and to see him playing himself. But he played himself, right?
He just played himself in this one, yeah.
But he was fantastic.
Yeah, thanks.
So you explore the intersection of faith and all of the challenges we have in a society. As a filmmaker who's been at the forefront of faith-based, how do you ensure your film resonates with both believers and skeptics, without compromising the integrity of your message?
That's a great question, by the way.
Aww.
Yeah, I like the way that's worded. Even like
Got
believers and skeptics. Like, it's just I wouldn't think of it that way. But that's actually, I mean, the God's Not Dead movie franchise has always been about opening up conversations. Mm-hmm. That's really the hope of it all. So when the first one came out, it's like it's not. We're not trying to throw stones against the other side, or obviously we're in a very politically charged. Our country has been so much, the division has risen over the years, just, I don't know, to way places that I'd never seen before, in my life anyway. And so these movies have always just kind of come in at the right time of where culture is. Yeah. Wow. And then hopefully they open up conversations to start talking about it. And that's what we got, all the letters and everything that we got on the first one, which is why then the second one went in. And yes, they're told from Judeo-Christian values, but the hope is that it allows people to start talking about it.
Incredible.
Well, the thing I love about the belief in God, in its universality, is that in order to join a recovery program, like a 12-step program, you have to walk in accepting a higher power. You don't have to say what it is, but you have to believe in it. And that means every alcoholic, every drug abuser, every person at the bottom crawling in for recovery has to start by accepting God. Now, I'm curious, did you ever have a point where you had some question in that area, or did you and you had some conversion or some
Do you mean, did I ever have a problem in my life? Not really. It's just easy. I mean,
Hollywood cool.
Hollywood is just so easy. My father was a Mennonite pastor.
Of course.
And so I grew up super conservative. Yeah. I saw one movie in the theater the first 18 years of my life.
Wow.
Which is, and for somebody who I'm a big believer in dreams. That's why I like your podcast, and where it comes from too is that it is people's stories are so fascinating.
Of course.
And where do we come from, and in what way does it shape us? And then also, at some point we have to decide for ourselves what is it that we believe. So even though I grew up as a Christian, landing in LA at 19 years old and then being on a hit television show at such an early age. Surrounded by megastars. I was on Evening Shade with Burt Reynolds. And I had to through my 20s do I only believe because of what my parents ingrained in me, or do I believe it because I believe it? That was a big thing going back and forth. And I started studying different religions and just all kinds of different things to try to come to the understanding of actually, I believe it because I believe it, not because of what was, put into me.
So
I don't know if that answered your question.
It did, absolutely. No, I see that it was
in
a
way
process.
long way. In a long about way.
I understand that you had to own it for yourself.
Yeah.
So you've been in the faith-based, cinema for years, and much has been written about your work and your personal journey. What's one aspect of your life or career, whether a personal philosophy, a challenge, or inspiration, that hasn't been shared or explored in interviews that you'd like to share with us?
There's a reason why it wasn't explored or talked about.
I wonder what it could have been.
But
Exactly.
but has significantly shaped who you are as a filmmaker and
Yeah.
a person.
Well, I think the Hollywood loves to pigeonhole people, right? They love to say, "Oh, you're that way. You're going to only work that way," right? And for me, I came in doing mainstream television all through my 20s, but I always felt like there's half the U.S. audience claims to be of faith. Of having faith, whether it's Catholic, Christian. There was a stat a few years back that 150 million American Christians go to church once a month. So there used to be more films dealing with spirituality, and they would be open to putting those in movies, in the mainstream movies, and then they stopped. Like more and more it got, it started to go the other way. And I felt at an early age, hey, that audience that goes to church once a month deserves movies that speaks in things that Hollywood isn't. There's a niche. There's a market for it. And that's why I launched, Kevin Downs and myself launched into, and Michael Scott, into building a faith division that really didn't exist much in Hollywood at all. And then, an early dream was always that that every studio would have a faith-based label.
You're a trailblazer.
And now they do.
Congratulations.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's a trailblazer.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a huge accomplishment.
And I by no means am taking all the credit. I give Roger Neal. Did we talk about Roger Neal on this? At least like 3% of the credit. Tony over there probably gets another 4%, and then Eve and Tony over here get another, I'd say 38%. So I think the left is maybe 22%.
So
I'm really good with math, by the way.
David, your background is just fantastic. As
Thank you, Eve.
mentioned earlier, growing up as the son of a Mennonite pastor, a lot of people would say, how does a Mennonite pastor's son relocate to Hollywood? Like, who inspired you to become an actor, filmmaker, producer, who you are today?
The joke? Do you want the joke of it? Is that Roger Neal? It was the
Wow.
PR for
I think we're going to need a
for the
camera
celebrities.
over Roger.
No, unfortunately, but Roger was here far before you and I were here.
Roger's story is fantastic.
Exactly, it's
But
fantastic
when
with
he
Bob
was
Hope and everybody
19.
else. They're a little bit older than
Similar
us,
to
right?
us, like he moved when
Not that Roger's that old. He just represented, the
Right.
legends. That's what we're talking about. All right, no, the how did it happen, Roger? The audience is like, who's Roger? Why do we have a? Yes, Roger's he's our genie over here, and
Roger Neal.
I think I'm a big believer that dreams get put inside of each and every one of us, right? They get put inside of our heart, and it doesn't make sense sometimes. I was a kid in Kansas on a farm in the middle of a wheat field on a tractor, and who saw one movie in the theater the first 18 years of my life. Wow. And somehow I had this desire to go in the entertainment industry. It made no sense. I didn't even know Roger Neal at the time. And
Roger is at
well.
I Make Stars on Instagram if you want to look him up.
Everyone should go there
No,
right
but it's
now.
an incredible story. I think it's an
Thank
incredible story for people all over the world who are thinking of moving to LA or who have aspirations of becoming a filmmaker, a producer, director. Your story is incredible and very, very inspiring.
Thank you.
So how did you navigate the industry when you just relocated as a 19-year-old who is green without having much experience.
Well, I mean, I think this goes back to, and the start of your conversation, the start of your question was, I believe that it's not even just my story. It's everybody has that story, which is why you have a podcast and you have incredible stories on here, right?
Yes.
I mean, Tony, I can't even believe that you lost. How many pounds did you lose?
86 so far.
Wow. See, this is the first time I've ever met you, so I can't even imagine you with 86 pounds.
Just like that.
Like, amazing. Well, you look great.
Thank you.
I mean, and I think that's the thing is like everybody has their own stories, and how do they all do it is what's fascinating.
Yes.
And for me, I stumbled in at 19. I was here 6 months. I was trying to just figure the industry out. Again, I didn't know Roger Neal, so I had to like really. I wish that I had. And I didn't know you either, or you, Tony. And you just kind of jump in, and you're like, okay, how does this all work? And I was really fortunate to go on Evening Shave with one line.
Wow.
And then Burt Reynolds
discovered you.
Yeah, basically called me his discovery and then allowed me to stay on the show.
So were you taking acting classes back in Kansas?
No,
or how did
it was done. No, I didn't even have a theater department in my high school.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we had I think I was in 2 plays, one as a munchkin. And another one as something else. I don't even know. That's
fantastic.
Love Carol Unruh, but I wish she would have made a little bit more plays, Carol.
But I think Burt was an acting teacher also, right?
Burt was an acting teacher,
and so did he help guide you? And when you first
I think that's the thing is Burt. You know, a lot of people who were on that show. And if you don't know anything about Evening Shade, it was a top 10 show on CBS for many years. With everybody on the show had either won an Oscar, an Emmy, or Tony, except for me. I had not.
A lot of pressure.
But we were
right?
kids. Yeah, we were just kids. And so I was amazed at I think because he was always so good with kids. He had a school in Jupiter, Florida, and Charles Nelson Riley was a director for Broadway, and then just a funny guy. But also he would teach. And he was the first class that I went to, is Charles Nelson Riley's class.
Oh, wow.
That's
a great
and
start.
they said, hey, you should go to his class. So
wow. So going back to God's Not Dead and God We Trust, because I've seen it and I don't want to do any spoilers, what are you willing to share with our listeners about the movie?
Well, I mean, I think it's just no matter. Again, it's a universal theme that yes, it comes from Judeo-Christian values, but at the same token, it's about getting involved. Mm-hmm. It's about God's not done with you yet, no matter where you are, no matter where you feel like you've run out and you don't see the world in front of you, but He still has that specific purpose and a plan for your life.
Wow.
And so in this movie, I have a guy who's the last. If you've seen God's Not Dead 3, 4, 5, actually 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, from all of them, my character goes through a lot of stuff, and it doesn't get any better. It just keeps getting worse in every movie. And so by the 5th one, he's like, I don't want to. I'm happy with my little world, and I just want to stay in my little world. And then all of a sudden, he gets that knock that says, hey, we want you to run.
That was incredible.
For Congress, yeah, and that he doesn't want to because he knows all the negative stuff that's going to come with it, which is, as we all know, and you enter into politics.
Yeah.
No matter which side you're on, you're going to get blasted big time.
Oh yeah, it was so believable. And the lady who played your political strategist, I think Lottie, the character.
Yeah, Samira Armstrong. Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, she was so good. I think just that pairing, seeing both of you was so believable that it made me feel like it just felt. I was rooting for your character. I was like, oh my God, come on, listen to her, be the bad guy. And it was fantastic. Isaiah Washington. I just thought
so
Charlene.
Good.
All of the incredible cast, and I forgot the guy who came to you and said you had to, take some time off from the church.
Yeah, Martin.
Oh,
yeah, Paul Quo.
He is fantastic. He's such an incredible actor, and you worked with him in 2 previous God's Not.
Well, actually, he is in all of that. He's our one actor who, besides me, who's been in all 5. Which is crazy. Yeah.
So what's next for the franchise, or is this it?
6. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. We don't know. I mean, this is, again, it's one of those things that it could be done. The franchise could be done. It depends on what the audience will do and what they want to see.
Well, it seems to be doing very well at the box office,
Yeah.
which is kind of unusual right at this particular moment. We're having some real struggles with that. So did that actually maybe even give you more of an opportunity to get promotion where there's kind of a smaller field?
I mean, I think that a lot of people really believe in this franchise, and from Universal to PureFlix, Great American, they all are involved in it, and it's done well for them, and which is why I think that they want to do, whether or not we do another one or not, it'll depend on them and
But the
also
reviews
the audience.
were fantastic. I think Rotten
the
Tomato
reviews
had
were-
it at
99%.
I was like, incredible. I couldn't stop watching it. Seriously, I started watching and I literally was like, I'm not going to stop. I watched the 90 minutes of it and then I rewatched it yesterday.
Wow.
I was like, oh my, I really liked the story. I connected with the story and it's so topical. Talk about timing.
Yeah.
The timing of it couldn't have been any better. And it's something that when you look at that story and with what's happening in today's political environment, it is just so, just the timing couldn't have been any better.
Well, and I'm going to just plug to it. It's out there everywhere, on iTunes, Apple, Amazon. Like you can get it
Spectrum
anywhere.
on Demand.
Yeah, anywhere. Yeah, exactly.
Anywhere on
demand.
Anywhere.
Amazon.
Yeah.
So-
God's Not Dead, In God We Trust.
In God we trust. So, David, besides all of your wonderful body of work, David also hosts a podcast. He's a guy who does it all. So the White House. Tell us about the White House.
The White House Pod, Dare to Dream. Well, I mean, I think it's it came out of when I was approached to do a podcast for many years leading up to it, when podcasts were kind of just in the and I didn't ever really wanted to do it because it seems like just how am I going to have the bandwidth to do that on top of everything else, and then it was like, okay, so once you all right, fine, I'll do a podcast because I do like talking to people.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to tell here. I'm a very difficult interviewer or interviewee.
Yeah, you seem to be warming up.
Yeah, more. Thank you, Tony. Yeah, but I don't know if you had the same thing too. It's like what are you going to do it about then? What is it about? And I think this comes back in life. Like, I went through a divorce about 4 years ago, and that made I was reeling from that because my whole world was upside down. So. Part of it's like you don't know where to go or what to do, or I don't feel like doing anything. And then Sony came and bought PureFlix. So then it was like, now what are we gonna do? We'd spent 15 years building something that then was gone. We still worked there. We ended up working that out and whatnot. But it was like, and I think those moments in life is what's trying because you don't know where you're going to go or what you're going to do or where are you supposed to go or what's the I always find in these God's Undead movies that my it's life imitating art.
Yes.
I feel like I'm constantly like even in this one, like, Lord, I don't want to do anything different. I don't know what I want to do, but I don't think I want to change or, change is tough, but that's what life is about. It's about change.
Incredible.
It's about moving forward. And so all that to say is, so at the end of it all, I came back to, well, why do you talk to people? What's important about it is, the White House Pod, Dare to Dream. It's about people's stories that can hopefully encourage other people in their stories.
That's incredible. That's the reason why I started this, because I lost my dad and he died so unexpectedly. And I came to Roger and I told Roger and that this was the vision. And he was like, let's make it happen. So I was fortunate to have worked with you on a project. And I know you've got a very good sense of humor. So You've worked with almost every A-lister. Is there a dream cast, someone that you haven't worked with that you would love to work with?
Well, I'm hoping to work with Eve Richards again.
Yeah.
I'm hoping we get to work together. Roger is going to make all of this happen. He's the man who makes it happen.
I make stars, Roger Neal, right? At I make stars. You too, Tony. You too. I haven't worked with you yet, but I look forward to it.
I would love to. If
Especially
you
a
wanna-
guy who gets his head chopped off. Apparently,
I'm
like,
ready.
well.
I'm ready. Chop my. I'm ready to bleed.
You know, it's interesting to, and I don't mean to repeat this, but back when from Evening Shade, the thing that I walked onto, because I moved around a bit as a kid, and when I saw Burt Reynolds with all of his friends from 30-some years around those tables, from the table reading to, you know, everybody from Hal Holbrook, Ozzie Davis, Ruby Dee, Elizabeth Ashley, Charles Durning, like just Mary Lou, just there's so many different people. And he had known them all along the 30 years of his, at the time that he had been working.
Yeah.
I remember going into his dressing room, and he had all these pictures of these, just every star on the planet, and half of them were on the show.
Wow.
And that's what I think that's more important than working with the hottest movie star, is to work with friends.
You get
that you
to
get
work,
along with. Yeah.
I see that you get to work with some of the same people all the time, like Scott and Tommy, and so I think that's incredible. So as a father, who I was impressed when I did the movie, and your daughters, who are just the best girls. I mean, it's like,
I kind of think so too.
oh, they're
Thanks
incredible.
for seeing that.
No, seriously, I was like at awe of how well behaved they were. I mean, and they're so gifted, like gifted actresses at such a young age. So this industry can be a little tough. I know you put them. Are they doing other projects besides your movies as well?
No, I mean, like, you know, they're big dancers. They've been dancing since they were 3.
Wow.
And they've been in movies since they were born.
Oh my God.
Literally. So, and they've just done, you know, when you cast your kids, it's tricky because I think you're more harsh on them than, you know, because you know, it's a lot of work to make sure that they're not embarrassing you, or embarrassing the production. You know, you almost hold them to a higher standard. But also, I feel like my daughters are gifted, and
That's incredible.
And so it works. You know, they each have their things that they're really good at, and so yeah. I don't feel like I propped them up or gave them something that they didn't deserve.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
As a parent,
And I could work them like 17 hours too.
oh,
Just kidding.
That didn't
Totally
happen.
kidding.
I saw that they got to leave early.
They
so,
have actually they have 8 hours or 6 hours depending on how old they are.
Right. So, but if they were not working in one of your productions, would you have any concerns about having your kids go into the industry?
Yeah, of course. I mean, ultimately, you want your kids to do whatever they love.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, Ocean's been wanting to model more, and the idea of getting into
older?
She's a 14-year-old. Yeah, and getting into modeling, you're like, I don't know. That's a tough thing to go. Thank you. I can credit their mom. She's a pretty girl too. That's really where they got it from.
They're beautiful girls, and so, you know, when you look at The God's Not Dead, you've done 5. Is there a favorite one of them that seems to resonate with you more, like that? When you go back and you're like, you know, this for me is, I don't know, like, is any one of them? Maybe 2014. Because it did so well.
Well, yeah, most people say that one. But the irony is that we were getting people saying this one was their favorite. The In God We Trust was their favorite. For me, I love 3, God's Not Dead, A Light in Darkness. And the core thing about that was love. It came out in 21, something like that, or whatever. It came out, no, that's not true. 18 or 19, I think.
Okay.
It came out in 2019. But it was at the height of Trump was our president, and yet, you know, there's a lot of people that were not on board of that, and so the height of dissension. That was why that movie was made, was about, you know, dissension in our culture, and where do Christians, people of faith, fit in the midst of that when they're on one side or the other? But where do you find that, love was basically, Jesus came for love to, and yeah. So I like that movie a lot, actually.
So, I'm curious to ask, just because, you've done so well in the industry, and how, looking at your family and your dad being a minister and him looking at your body, is he very supportive, or is he alive?
Actually, both my parents passed
Sorry to
before, even before God's Not Dead came out. So they didn't really see. They saw the inception of what PureFlix was.
Okay.
Obviously, they were proud of that.
Good.
But they, I feel like they were gone, too soon. But then again, people lose their parents at all different ages and too soon, and so. But I know where they are. They're up and with the Lord, looking down on us, and I feel like as parents get older, they have to go through even more hardship, and so in some ways I almost feel like God just took them. He said, "You know what? I'm going to take you out before you have to go through all the pain and the massive suffering."
So, knowing how much you've achieved in the industry and your journey, what advice would you give to anyone who's trying to navigate the complex world of entertainment?
Well, call Roger Neal first. I think that's number one. Call Tony, have a podcast from Kansas. I think everybody has their own paths, and you kind of have to. I think it's smart for people to read up on different people and the different paths that different people took, like listening to your podcast.
I listened to yours
and
even before I started this one because I wanted to get inspiration.
Hopefully it helped a little bit.
Oh, it did. There's so many interviews.
Because you're doing it way better now than we ever did it. Roger, why is that? She's got a cooler logo. She's got Tony over there with a cool, he matches her cup.
Yours
that doesn't happen in my podcast.
No, yours was very inspirational. And I have to say, the interview with Jesse Matka, you've had such amazing guests, and I drew a lot of inspiration from yours as well. So
thank you.
Yeah. What's next for David?
What's next? Well, we just did an amazing movie called A Line of Fire. That's hopefully coming out in probably April, I think, of 2025.
Oh my God!
That this really cool lady with this awesome blonde hair plays this person that you would not believe. She has some twists and turns in this one. Her and Cuba Gooding Jr. and Jason Patrick and Scott Baio and Katrina Bowman.
Bowman. What a great
Rock,
cast!
Wow.
Like, oh my goodness, that was fantastic. David is incredible. I have to say, he's such an amazing collaborator. He is so kind. I went in and it was so hot, and I was so anxious.
It was hot. We shot it this summer.
David, one of the scenes in his office, and here I am in a suit, and I'm anxious because, I was like, I'm putting a little pressure on myself. What's Roger going to do? And it was 100 and something degrees. But David was so amazing to work with. The redirects, and then the next
bring the
day,
heat?
No,
did David bring the heat? Get where I'm going with that?
The next day,
a little too much heat, maybe.
The next day in Woodland Hills, David was just fantastic to work with. For anyone who has an opportunity to get to work with David, he's such an incredible actor, director, producer, writer. But not only that, he's just very fun, easygoing, made it. Everyone who worked on set, and including the background actors, were so complimentary of David.
Well, there's a resume attached to the bottom of the chair if you want to.
Yeah. Oh, good. Did I get the lucky chair?
You
that
did.
has Tony's resume
you
on it?
Resume.
What can you tell us?
I will tell you this. I'll tell you this, Eve. Okay, you have, without giving too much away, you have some very long scenes where you have a lot of dialogue, and it was. One day in particular, it was 110 degrees outside, probably in the valley in July, I think. And
July 5th.
Yeah, and you had your whole outfit was, one that it doesn't you wouldn't necessarily wear that on a 110 degree thing but this is all part of the movie making process. Is sometimes you're doing a Christmas thing and it's 400 degrees outside too, and you're supposed to be in parkas and everything like that. But what I was so impressed with was you had an unbelievable way of you had so much dialogue, and never did you make a mistake in that dialogue. I would be going, line. You have one line, David. Yeah, but where does it come in at? And where do I, and you had this like pages.
No.
And you nailed it every single time. I've told more people about that because I was super impressed with that, actually.
I told Roger, I put a lot of pressure on myself. There's a lot of pressure. Like, if Roger comes in and Roger was there, what is he going to say about this? And so, but David, I think you made it so comfortable for me that I felt so relaxed. What can you say about the movie without giving too much out?
Well, it is we live in a society that I think it's culturally relevant in a way. There's a lot of corruption in government, right? No matter what side of the aisle you're on, there's a lot of corruption, whether it's in the FBI or the CIA or, and so this takes place on, I play a character who's retired from the FBI because he wants to spend time with his daughters after his wife passed from cancer. And so he is retired. He feels way too early, but he feels like he has to give time to, our kids are only young for so long. And in the process of it, there's some nefarious stuff going on. We're not going to mention any names by who.
Who in this room is a a really bad guy
who's smuggling guns to the and anyway, there's my ex-partner's killed, which brings me back in, and then it's the unraveling of what is this and who is in charge of this, and he's got to go through a lot of bodies to get through. You thought John Wick has a lot of body count. A Line of Fire has a lot of body count.
So this is a little bit of a departure from the God's Not Dead franchise, which is what a lot of folks are accustomed to seeing.
Yeah.
So is this a risk that you think you took going into something totally different, into the action thriller genre?
It's definitely a risk, it's definitely, but I feel like I feel like I did what I was supposed to do with even bringing action into the faith-based arena. Like there was end times movies, and we did those early on in our career. But then it morphed into Love on the Rock, and Beckman, was about a hitman who found God, but then he was drawn back in when his daughter was trafficked, and so it's like all kinds of, I feel like we explored a lot of things, and so this is a mainstream action thriller that is has a lot of twists and turns, and it's with an amazing cast. I felt like this was my next step, so I feel good about it.
With a female antagonist, usually these movies culminate in the mano a mano. Mm-hmm. Is this a mano a womano?
Wow. David is like...
I've never heard that. Sure.
Okay.
But it's always the first, right?
Was it different than taking on a
male
villain?
Yes, of course. Well, I think that that's part of the fun of this movie is it's the twists and turns and trying to figure out who's who and who's bad and who's good and sometimes the lines are blurry, and so I'm trying not to give too much away.
Yeah.
Oops.
So
way to go, Tony.
Can we edit that, Tony?
What's next for David? I mean, I know every time I see David on Instagram, like yesterday, you posted there was a photo of you on a Talks. And I think you said with a Louis Vuitton shopping bag. It was a beautiful picture.
That's what you saw out of that post?
Of course. How couldn't I?
She's got a fashion eye.
Hold on a second. Let me just rephrase it. She saw. So you guys gotta put this actual thing in it. She saw a tuxedo and a Louis Vuitton bag.
Yes.
That's what you got out of that.
That's
The
what I got
acting,
out of it.
fashion, and health.
James Bond like.
It was a TikTok based on it was an assassin. He's an assassin, and then he accidentally tries to taste the poison, and then he kills himself.
Is this a new project?
No. It was just a TikTok.
Oh, it was fun.
It was very fun. It trends every single time it's put up there. Yeah,
It was
it's hilarious.
beautifully. Yes, it was hilarious.
It's hilarious.
It was incredible.
I did shoot that in South Africa, and I did have I was in the middle of doing a tuxedo scene, and I was sitting in my dressing room, and I had some time, and then I was like, "Oh, this is funny. Let's do this."
It was fun. I loved it. Oh my
Yeah.
god! Like David has such a great.
But
sense of-
I actually the Louis Vuitton bag that came from Liz Travis, who was one of our business partners for many, many years, and Liz Travis collects those bags. You and Liz would get along very well. It's been all over
Roger,
everywhere.
Let's try to see if we can have her here for the next
You should
season.
definitely. Yeah,
we should
she's great.
have her. Oh my goodness, we've got 3 minutes.
And she could just bring some bags, and you guys could,
I know, we could talk about fashion.
Yes,
You could
that's
see.
exactly what you could talk about.
Oh, David, this has been so much fun. Getting
You
to hear
mean the
all
fact that
about-
you got all the way through me to just get to Liz Travis so she could talk about bags and fashion?
And we're talking
like,
vintage bags, I
Vintage
believe.
bags,
Vintage
yes.
bags, not just any bags.
So, David, we're down to the last 3 minutes of the interview. And
Okay.
to wrap up, if you were to have dinner with 3 people, dead or alive, who would it be?
Well,
and
first
why?
of all, it'd be Eve Richards. Second, it would be Tony. I don't know his last name, but Tony
Blass,
lost 87
yeah,
pounds.
I'll be there.
Third, it would be sorry, Tony, over there from Kansas, but Roger Neal. Who would I have dinner with? I'd say those 4 people would be great. And I don't know the new guy over here. I've never seen him before. Anton. All right, you can be 5th, Anton.
David has such a great sense of humor. And when I watched your podcast, are you still taping season 2 or?
Yeah, we don't do seasons. We just do them straight. Yeah.
Oh, so
Yeah.
you just do, is it weekly or is it based on what you're working on your schedule?
It is weekly, and it's every Tuesday they drop. Every Tuesday on Spotify, iHeart.
Incredible.
Yeah, everywhere else. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, David, it's been so much fun having you here.
Thank you.
Talking about
Likewise.
your movie, and I've watched it twice.
I love that.
God's not dead.
No,
and
you're not
God
just
would
saying
come.
that. See, this is the interesting thing. Is
Roger,
like some people
no,
say it, but I don't. I actually know you did because you
I
had the
did.
right questions for
I
it.
talked to Roger.
job.
I texted Roger,
Well done.
and I said to Roger, Roger, I couldn't. Seriously, I couldn't stop.
I'm not pressuring, by the
No,
way.
no, no.
That just seems
I-
such a guest thing to do. Did you really read my book? Did you really?
All the way
I
through.
did. It wasn't just
No,
because
I
of-
believe you. I
really
believe
and I
you.
really liked it. And it's ironic that your character is also David.
Yeah.
Oh
Well,
my
that's a
goodness.
simplicity thing. It's
I
like
know.
you're like, well, Reverend Dave, fine, David's gonna
What
play
an
that. There you
incredible
go.
interview, Tony. Right?
Absolutely. I'm so inspired by somebody who not only in this town can not only pursue your dreams, but pursue them exactly the way you want to. That's saying a
But
lot.
he stays very humble as well. David, what
thank
an
you.
honor to have you
Likewise.
here with us. It's been so much fun learning about the movie, in God's Not Dead and God We Trust. Folks, please make sure you watch this episode with David A.R. White, and please go check out his movie. It's available on Amazon, which is where I watched it.
Yeah, everywhere. Yeah.
Everywhere. And David, obviously, of course, he's on all of the various social media. He's on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere. TikTok. Ladies and gentlemen, what a wonderful, gosh, I can't even talk anymore. What a wonderful episode with the inspiring David A.R. White. Roger Neal, thank you so much for this incredible, producing this incredible show.
Thank you, Roger Neal.
Thank you, Tony, sweet, and I'm sorry,
Anton,
thank
Anton.
you. So, ladies and gentlemen,
Number 5,
please
Anton.
make sure you watch us on the Discovery Pod with Eve's YouTube channel, or you could listen to us on your favorite podcast platform. Make sure you tune in next week, because you never know who's going to stop by. Until then, see you next week. Bye. Thank you, David.